Her voice was sharp, cutting through the quiet of the dining room like a knife. "No, she can't sit here. Not at my table." The Latina maid froze, holding the trays so tightly her hands shook. The silverware rattled against the plates as she set them down, her eyes lowering to the floor. She wasn't used to kindness, but she also wasn't prepared for the cruelty in that woman's tone. The woman sitting at the table, Clara, looked flawless, polished, the kind of woman who wore her pearls even at breakfast. She glanced at her friends, wealthy ladies from the neighborhood, and smirked as if humiliating someone else somehow made her shine brighter. But before anyone could react, before the maid could slip quietly back into the kitchen, the front door opened. A man's voice echoed down the hallway. "Honey, I'm home." The women turned their heads, and Clara's smile widened. Her husband was back earlier than expected. She stood, smoothing down her dress, ready to welcome him. But what happened next froze her in place. Because when he stepped into the dining room, his eyes didn't fall on his wife. They went straight to the maid. And with a voice full of emotion, full of recognition, he whispered, "Mom?"
The room went silent. The air turned heavy. Every woman at that table felt the shock ripple through their bodies. Clara's mouth dropped open, and she stumbled back a step. What did you just say?" she stammered. The maid trembled, tears welling in her eyes. She dropped the tray onto the counter with a clatter and slowly turned to face him. Her lips parted, but no words came. She had kept her secret for so long, hidden her pain for years. And now, standing in front of her son after all this time, her silence spoke louder than anything. But how did it come to this moment? How did a woman end up working as a maid in her own son's house without him even knowing the truth? It all started decades earlier, in a small town far from the polished streets Clara called home. The maid's name was Rosa. She was young once, beautiful, with long dark hair and a smile that lit up every room she entered. But her beauty was nothing compared to her heart. She was kind, selfless, the type of woman who would give away her last piece of bread if it meant feeding someone else. Rosa had fallen in love with a man who came from privilege, a man whose family didn't approve of her background, her heritage, her poverty. He was wealthy, college-educated, born into a name that opened doors. She was the daughter of farmers, a girl who carried dirt under her nails and dreams in her eyes.
But love doesn't always listen to rules. Love doesn't care about class or money. And for a while, they were happy. They shared laughter in the fields, promises whispered under the stars. And then, one day, Rosa found out she was pregnant. Her heart raced with both fear and joy. She knew their love would face challenges, but she believed, deep down, that he would stand by her side. But when she told him, everything changed. His parents gave him a choice: stay with Rosa and lose his inheritance, or walk away and live the life of wealth he was destined for. And he chose wealth. Rosa was left alone, carrying her baby, abandoned by the man she trusted most. She worked tirelessly, cleaning houses, scrubbing floors, washing dishes just to survive. She gave everything to her son, Miguel. He was her world, her light in the darkest nights. She raised him with love, with values, with hope that one day he would have the life she never could. But poverty is cruel. Opportunities slip away when you don't have the right last name, the right connections, the right chance. And Rosa knew, as Miguel grew older, that the world would never open doors for him the way it did for his father. So when he became a man, Rosa made the hardest decision of her life. She let him go. She encouraged him to leave their small town, to study, to find a better life. And he did. He worked harder than anyone else, earned his degree, and built a future for himself. But he believed his mother had stayed behind, safe in their little town, living quietly. What he didn't know was that Rosa had fallen on hard times. Age had worn her down. Bills piled up, opportunities grew fewer, and she couldn't make ends meet. Out of desperation, she found work in the city as a maid. She told no one where she was going, not even her son. She didn't want him to see her like that. She didn't want him to feel ashamed of her. And now, fate had placed her in the most painful position of all, working in her own son's home, hired by a wife who saw her as nothing more than the help. The irony cut deep. Rosa had spent her whole life protecting her son from shame, yet here she was, standing in front of him in a uniform, treated like she didn't even deserve to sit at a table. And now, in this frozen, tense moment, all the years of silence had come crashing down. Her son was staring at her, his voice shaking as he repeated the word, louder this time, with disbelief and heartbreak spilling out of him. "Mom?" Clara's friends looked back and forth between them, their perfect little brunch ruined, their curiosity clawing at them. Clara's face went pale. She clenched her pearls, her lips trembling as if the ground beneath her had just collapsed. And Rosa? Rosa could barely breathe. She whispered, "Miguel," and the room shattered. "Mom, how is this possible?" Miguel's voice cracked as he stared at the trembling woman in front of him. He felt like the ground had been ripped out from under his feet. His whole life, he believed his mother was safe, living quietly back in their hometown. And now she was here, working as a maid in his house, treated like she was nothing? Rosa could hardly meet his eyes. Her lips quivered as she tried to speak, but her heart was heavy with shame. "Miguel, I didn't want you to see me like this." The words hit him like a blow. He stepped closer, his hands shaking, anger and confusion boiling inside him. "Like this? Mom, what are you talking about? You raised me. You sacrificed everything for me. And now you're here? Cleaning my floors? Serving food at my table? And you never told me?" Clara finally found her voice. She stood tall, her face burning with embarrassment. "Wait a minute. You're telling me this woman, this maid, is your mother?" Miguel whipped his head around, his eyes blazing. "This woman is the reason I'm even standing here. This woman gave up everything so I could have a better life. And you?" His voice trembled with fury. "You treated her like trash." Clara's friends shifted uncomfortably, whispering among themselves, but Clara snapped back defensively. "I didn't know she was your mother. She didn't tell me. How was I supposed to know?" Miguel's fists clenched at his sides. "You didn't need to know. All you needed was basic human decency, respect. But instead, you humiliated her, because in your eyes, she's just a maid, someone who doesn't deserve to sit at your table." Rosa reached out, her hands trembling as she tried to calm her son. "Please, Miguel, don't fight. Don't be angry. I chose this. I needed the work. I didn't want to burden you." Her words pierced him. His chest tightened. "Burden me? Mom, you are the only reason I've ever gotten anywhere in life. Do you know how many times I thought about you when things got hard? How many nights I worked late telling myself I'm doing this for my mother so she'll never struggle again? And all this time, you were struggling more than ever. Alone." Rosa broke down, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't want you to feel ashamed of me." Miguel's heart shattered. He dropped to his knees beside her, grabbing her hands and pressing them to his chest. "Ashamed? Mom, you are my pride. You're my everything. If anyone should feel ashamed, it's me, for not being there, for not realizing." Clara's face hardened. She crossed her arms, her voice cold. "So what now, Miguel? You expect me to treat her like some honored guest? She's been lying this whole time. She came into our home under false pretenses. What kind of woman hides her identity from her own son?" Rosa flinched at the words, but Miguel turned on his wife, his eyes filled with a fire she had never seen before. Don't you dare, don't you dare talk about her like that. The only person who should be ashamed right now is you. You insulted my mother in her own son's house. You degraded her in front of your friends as if she's beneath you. But you don't even realize she's the reason I'm the man you married. She is the reason we have this life." The room fell silent again. Clara's friends lowered their eyes, uncomfortable, suddenly seeing Clara in a different light. The perfect hostess, the woman they admired, now exposed for her cruelty. Miguel's voice softened as he turned back to Rosa. "Mom, please, tell me why. Tell me everything. Why didn't you ever let me know?" Rosa's lips trembled as she finally allowed the years of silence to unravel. Her voice was faint but steady, carrying the weight of decades. "Miguel, when you left for the city, I thought my heart would break. But I told myself it was for the best. You needed to leave that little town behind. You needed to build a future I could never give you. I stayed behind because I didn't want you to feel guilty. I didn't want you to see the truth, that I was drowning. I lost my job at the laundry. The bills piled up, and soon I couldn't survive." Miguel's eyes filled with tears. "Why didn't you call me? Why didn't you tell me? I would have helped you."
Rosa shook her head. "I didn't want to ruin the life you were building. I wanted you to shine without carrying the weight of me on your shoulders. So I came here. I found work wherever I could. I told myself it was temporary, just until I got back on my feet. But time passed, and here I am." Her voice cracked as she whispered, "And then I found myself in this house. I didn't know it was yours, Miguel, not until I saw your picture on the wall. And by then, it was too late. I was too ashamed to tell you." Miguel's chest tightened so much he could barely breathe. The image of his mother scrubbing floors in silence, hiding her face, all while he was building a life of comfort, it broke him. He pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly as if he could protect her from every cruel word, every hardship she had endured. "Never again," he whispered fiercely. "Never again will you work another day as someone's maid. Never again will you hide. You are my mother, and I will honor you the way you deserve." But Clara wasn't finished. Her pride burned too hot, her voice dripping with contempt. "So what, Miguel? You're going to parade her around, pretend she belongs at dinner parties? You think our friends will accept her? She's a maid. She'll always be a maid." Miguel's jaw tightened. He slowly turned toward his wife, his grip on his mother unshakable. His voice was calm, but his words cut deeper than any scream. "If that's what you believe, Clara, then maybe you don't belong at my table." The room gasped. Clara's face went white. And in that moment, everything began to change. Clara's lips trembled. For the first time in their marriage, she saw a side of Miguel she had never seen before. A strength that wasn't polished or charming or professional, but raw, unshakable, rooted in something far deeper. And it terrified her. You don't mean that," she stammered, trying to laugh, as if the weight of his words could be brushed aside like spilled wine. "You're angry. You'll calm down. You can't just throw away our marriage over this." Miguel's eyes were steady. "Marriage means nothing if it's built on disrespect. If you can look at the woman who gave me life, the woman who bled and broke her body so I could have a chance, and see nothing but a maid, then you've already thrown it away." The room was so quiet you could hear the ticking of the clock on the wall. Clara's friends sat frozen, wide-eyed, torn between their loyalty to her and the shame now spreading across their faces. One by one, they stood awkwardly, muttering excuses. "I think we should go," one said softly. And just like that,
Clara's perfect little gathering fell apart. The front door closed behind them, leaving only Clara, Miguel, and Rosa in the room. Rosa sat quietly, her wrinkled hands folded in her lap, her eyes full of sorrow. She had never wanted to be the reason for conflict, never wanted to divide her son's life. Miguel knelt beside her again, his voice gentle. "Mom, there's something I need to know. The truth, all of it. Please, don't protect me anymore." Rosa's eyes glistened with tears as memories rushed back. She took a shaky breath. "You always asked me about your father, why he was never there. I told you he had to leave, that he had responsibilities, that maybe one day he would come back. But that was never true. He left because his family made him choose." Miguel's chest tightened. He had spent years wondering, but hearing it said out loud was a wound reopening. "Choose? Choose what?" "Choose between us and his wealth," Rosa whispered. "His parents told him if he stayed with me, he'd lose everything. The money, the family name, the future they promised him, and he chose them." The words cut deep, each syllable heavy with betrayal. Miguel clenched his fists. "He abandoned us for money." Rosa nodded slowly, tears spilling. "I begged him. I told him I didn't need riches, that all I wanted was for you to have a father. But his pride, his greed, it was stronger than his love for us."
Miguel sat back, his mind spinning. All his life he had carried the image of a father who might one day return. Now, that hope crumbled into dust. He looked at his mother with new eyes, not just as the woman who raised him, but as the warrior who endured abandonment, poverty, and humiliation, all while protecting him from the truth. Clara broke the silence with a sharp laugh. "So that's it? That's the big tragic story? Your father didn't want you, so now you worship your mother like some saint? Miguel, open your eyes. She's a liar. She hid this from you your whole life. She let you grow up with a fantasy instead of facing reality." Miguel turned to her slowly, his face hard as stone. "No, she didn't lie to me. She protected me. She gave me hope when I had nothing. She worked her hands to the bone so I wouldn't starve. You want to talk about lies, Clara? The only lie here is the one you've been living, pretending your money, your friends, your perfect little parties make you better than everyone else." Clara's cheeks flushed with rage. "How dare you speak to me like that after everything I've given you? The house, the car, the life?" "The life I built," Miguel snapped, his voice booming through the room. "The house I worked for, the career I fought for, the success I earned through sweat and sleepless nights. You didn't give me this life, Clara. My mother did, with her sacrifices, her love, her faith in me. Every brick in this house is hers. Every victory is hers. And you?" He pointed at her, his eyes blazing. "You insulted her in her own son's home." Clara stepped back, shaken, as if the man standing before her was a stranger. She had always seen Miguel as successful, charming, handsome. But now she saw the fire, the roots of where he truly came from. And it terrified her, because it was a part of him she could never control. Rosa's hand trembled as she touched Miguel's arm. "Please, mijo, don't be angry. Don't let my pain destroy your marriage." But Miguel shook his head, tears streaming down his face. "No, Mom, this isn't your pain. This is ours. This is the truth finally coming out. And if my wife can't respect the woman who gave me life, then what kind of marriage do we really have?" The words hung in the air, heavy and final. Clara's face crumbled. You'd choose her over me?" she whispered, disbelief breaking through her anger. Miguel's voice was steady, quiet, but powerful. "I'd choose respect. I'd choose love. I'd choose the woman who never left my side, even when the whole world did. And if you can't accept that, Clara, then yes, I will choose my mother." Rosa gasped softly, shaking her head. She never wanted to break her son's marriage, but the truth had forced itself into the light. Clara stood frozen,
her perfect image cracking, her arrogance slipping away. For the first time, she wasn't the woman in control. And Miguel knew there was no going back. The silence stretched so long it felt like time itself had stopped. Clara stood stiff, her hands clutching the back of a chair, her knuckles white. Her eyes darted between Miguel and Rosa, searching for a way to pull back, to salvage the image she had so carefully built. But there was nothing left to hide behind. Finally, she whispered, "So this is it? After everything, you're just gonna throw me away?" Miguel looked at her, his heart heavy but clear. "Clara, marriage isn't about money or parties or who sits where at the table. It's about respect. It's about seeing people for who they are, not for what they have. And today, you showed me who you really are." Clara swallowed hard, her pride battling her fear. For a moment, it seemed she might break down, might apologize, might finally face the truth. But then her chin lifted, her old pride flickering back. "Fine," she snapped. "If you want to live with her, if you want to throw your life away for a maid, then so be it. Don't expect me to stay." She grabbed her purse, her heels clicking angrily across the floor as she stormed out the door, slamming it behind her. The house fell quiet. Only the faint sound of Rosa's quiet sobs filled the air. She looked at her son, her face etched with both love and guilt. "Mijo, I didn't mean to cause this. I didn't want to take your happiness away." Miguel wrapped his arms around her, holding her close. "Mom, you didn't take anything from me. You gave me everything. If Clara can't see your worth, then she never really saw mine either. I won't live in a home where the woman who raised me is treated as less than human. I won't." Rosa clutched his hand, her voice shaking. "All I ever wanted was for you to have more than I did, to never feel small because of where you came from or what you looked like. I wanted you to belong." Miguel kissed her forehead, his voice breaking. "I belong with you, always. And from now on, you'll never work another day scrubbing floors. You'll sit at the head of the table, where you belong." Tears poured down Rosa's face, not from sorrow, but from a relief she had carried in silence for decades. For the first time in years, she felt seen, not as a maid, not as a servant, but as a mother, a woman who mattered. Days later, the neighborhood buzzed with whispers. Clara had vanished from the spotlight, too humiliated to face her friends again. But Miguel? He stood proudly beside his mother, introducing her to everyone, telling her story with pride. Some people looked uncomfortable, others were moved to tears, but Miguel didn't care. This was his truth, and he would never hide it again. One evening, as they sat together at the dinner table, just the two of them, Miguel took his mother's hand. "You know what hurts me most, Mom? That you ever thought I could be ashamed of you. You are my hero, my example. Everything I am, I owe to you." Rosa smiled through her tears, her voice soft but steady. "And everything I endured for you." They ate together, not in silence, but in peace. And in that simple act, mother and son finally reunited not as maid and master, but as family. The wounds of the past began to heal. Because in the end, respect is stronger than pride, love is stronger than prejudice, and the truth will always rise to the surface, no matter how long it has been buried. So let this story be a reminder. Never look down on someone because of the work they do. You don't know the sacrifices they've made, the battles they've fought, the lives they've touched. Every person you meet carries a story, one that could change the way you see the world. If you felt this story in your heart, don't let it end here. Share it, tell others, and most of all, never forget to honor the people who gave you everything, even when the world gave them nothing. If you believe in love, in respect, in treating people with dignity, hit that like button, subscribe for more powerful stories, and let me know in the comments, who is the person you'll never stop honoring in your life? Because sometimes the most ordinary people are the greatest heroes.